Hi, everyone. Happy Monday, and welcome to another episode of Rebels Revisited. I'm so excited tonight to be here with two very special guests. First off, Jamie Graham from Daughters of the Galaxy. Thanks for visiting.
No problem. Like I said, I'm the VCN's like feral cat. You guys feed me once and I keep showing back up.
She's our resident substitute teacher, and we have
Yeah.
a very plan for today. You can see his character right there in the center of the frame. Keone Young is here with us today to talk.
Yay!
Sato, welcome, Keone. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, Mark and Jamie.
I'm so excited you're here. We met briefly at Rhode Island Comic Con in November of last year. And Ashley, who you met when we were there together, she and I basically talk about you every episode now, being like, he was so fun. You have to meet him. He's at a convention. Make sure you go chase him down. So it was a thrill. And you signed my Rebels poster for me. It was a blast.
Thank you.
So with that in mind, are you on the road right now? I know you have some appearances coming up.
Yeah, I'm on the East Coast. I just finished in Augusta, Georgia, where they had the Augusta Toy and Comic Fest, which is usually called the Joe Fest because it's G.I. Joe based.
Oh,
and
cool.
I was the original character of Storm Shadow, Ninja Warrior, in the first G.I. Joe show. And there's a big fan base out in the South, you know, for the old G.I. Joes. It was your father's childhood.
Mm-hmm.
And so I got to meet a lot of fans out there, and it's always a big to do. And then I will be going next week on the 24th and 25th to the Garden State Comic Fest, which is the New Jersey Comic-Con, the big one in New Jersey. And then a week after that, I'll be in Boxborough, Massachusetts at the Collectibles Extravaganza, but it's also a music con, and I had to jump to it because Mickey Dolenz of the Monkees is going to be there. And Mickey Dolenz is like my generation, the Monkees are my generation. So
yeah.
Actually, I'll tell you a little story. The Monkees got together because in the old days, we used to have Variety and the Hollywood Reporter. And whenever they were trying to do productions, they would put ads in there, classified ads. And in it said, we're forming a new band, wanting to meet young guys. And so every actor at that time auditioned, and I auditioned for the Monkees.
What?
Really?
What?
Knowing that I probably would not get in it because they were looking for a certain type. And however, that's how the Monkees got formed. It was an ad in Variety. And eventually I got to work and meet some of them. I worked with Michael Nesmith, who was a really sweet guy, on some of films that he made, and so on. Yeah, it was a great period.
That's
the early 70s. Yeah.
Wow.
That's
great.
crazy. Especially because like you've had such a super diverse acting career. Can you imagine if you were a monkey on top of all that?
No, yeah, I didn't think I had a real shot, but it was a great period for actors, the early 70s,
Yeah.
And so they're doing this music con, and Sherry Curry of the Runaways, the lead singer of the Runaways, is going to be there. So I said, man, I gotta go. And Phil Ramones of the Ramones. So
what?
Yeah,
it's so fun to hear that, because it's like, people like us get excited to go to a Comic-Con to meet people like you.
Yeah.
And here you are getting excited to meet like people at a music con.
Yeah. So
awesome.
I'm a guest. I'll be there at the end of the month. So, and hopefully I'll be going back to LA to do some work and stuff like that.
That's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, busy guy.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you're here on the East Coast. I know you mentioned to me that you're here part of the year because you live here and also in LA. Is that right?
Yes, that's true. I live in Los Angeles, but I do have a place in Manhattan.
Oh, Manhattan. Nice. I grew up in Flushing and Queens, so I'm a native New Yorker. I've lived here pretty much my whole life. And Jamie's got you covered on the West Coast. So she's minutes away from the edge.
Right.
So yeah, we'll coordinate drinks the next time we're out there.
Yes. Yeah, it's so wild because it's nice to hear that a lot of voice talent is really on both coasts. I'm actually down in Orlando, Florida these days, but I grew up just outside of Anaheim, California. So I mean,
yeah,
been all over the place. But yeah. So Keone, you, like I said earlier, you've had such a really diverse list of characters attributed to your name. What are some of those roles that, you know, you told us you were in G.I. Joe? I mean, that's pretty cool. What are some of those roles that have really stuck out with you or really, you know, memorable to you that you keep close to your heart?
Well, first, I think I should tell you my background, like from where
Fair.
And how I started, because I'm from Hawaii, Honolulu, Hawaii, and I was what we call a local boy, and you know, it was really rough. I could not handle school. I could not make it in school. I was a low C/D student, average. You know, school was not fun for me. But I found the theater, and theater was great. I did a lot of. Actually, I was going to do the technical, and I was going to be like a lighting designer or a set designer or something, build sets, stuff like that. And then I found out no actor wants to do the small parts. so they would see me standing in the wings, you know, and they would go, "Hey kid, you want to do this part?" And so I played all these little parts in different great plays. Like in The Death of a Salesman, I was the waiter who brought in the coffee. and my line was, "Here's your coffee, sir." And then I would stand in the wings and watch these actors doing the lead roles, and I would think, "Hey, they're not that good." And I thought, "Hey, I could be better than them." And so I started thinking, and then I was mentored by a wonderful woman whose name is Grace McAllister, who was my drama teacher. And she made me read all these great plays by Chekhov, Arthur Miller, Tennessee Williams. So I really wanted to become a dramatic actor, but musicals were big, if you remember then. And so they threw me in, like I did My Fair Lady. I was a cop. I'm getting married in the morning. So I did all those roles. And it's a funny thing, I was 15 at the time, and I was working with this other 16-year-old who was in the chorus with me. And her name was Bette Midler. So
oh, okay.
Thanks.
That's cool.
Yeah, so Bette and I grew up together in the community theater doing musicals. I did How to Be Secretary is Not a Toy. Oh, you know, How to Succeed in Business with that. Really, yeah. And then 20 years later, I sang for Stephen Sondheim an audition in Broadway, and he offered me a part in his play, and I turned it down because I wanted to be a serious actor, not a chorus boy.
Wow.
That was
you have to tell us, though. You have to tell us which Stephen Sondheim show it was.
It was Pacific Overtures. Yeah, it was in 76. It was in 76. And so I sang for Hal Prince and Stephen Sondheim, and then they offered me a job in it. But it was kind of like, you know, one of those chorus boys. You do 5 roles, you bring in the lamp, you bring in this, you know, this and that. And I said, another of my great mentors was Mako, who started it. And he said, "Well, do you want to be a chorus boy? Or do you want to be a good actor?" I said, "Well, I want to be a good actor." So he made me go and take classes. So I went to New York, but I didn't do the play. I was broke. I was starving. And I had to make a choice. And I decided to, you know, follow through from my mentor. And Mako, I don't know if you know Mako. Mako was nominated for Academy Award in Sand Pebbles. And he was also nominated for a Tony in Pacific Overtures. But he was the voice of Uncle Iroh in Avatar, and Aku in Samurai Jack. And yeah, consequently, because I was doing voice acting at the time and he wasn't, you know, I said, "Hey, Mako, do you want to do some animation?" He said, "What for?" I said, "You can make a lot of money." And he went, "Okay." And so he became Uncle Iroh. I brought him to my agent, and they got him Uncle Iroh. So anyway.
Wow.
Yeah. So anyway, I got a lot of crazy stories like that. Yeah, from working with Bette Midler to working with Mako. So anyway,
listen, I'm still processing Bette Midler. That's wild.
So I came out here in the '67. Bette Midler went to New York because she had a little more money than me, so she could travel that further. And she, you know, she went to New York. I went to Los Angeles, and she became famous, and I became Commander Sato.
Famous, still famous.
Yeah, I will say your IMDb is gigantic. We were searching through a couple weeks ago, just going through the list, being like, all right, what roles do we want to ask him about? And there was sort of a melee about what would we have time for, because we have Avatar
Right.
fans. And I think, as I mentioned, spoke on the phone, my husband recognized you from the Golden Girls. Like, it's crazy how big the list is. Yeah, so actually, we do want to ask a little bit about Star Wars.
Okay.
Just a little bit.
But Avatar is all really well loved in our group. So do you want to tell the story about how you landed that role and all of that?
Well, you know, when I first came to LA, they told me to leave. They told me you would never make it, you know. And then these were other older Asian actors, like from the first generation. I don't know if you know James Hong and that crowd. They were the generation before me. So I was the young guy trying to break in, and they would say to me, kid, don't break your heart. Go back home, get a job, get married. And I was so stubborn that I refused to. I said, I don't care if I'm broke. I don't care if I starve. This is what I want to do. And so, as I said before, my mentor made me learn. You know, I took ballet, I studied gymnastics, modern dance, ethnic dance. I learned to read music. I learned to read Western and Asian music, just so I could have, because his idea was to have all the sciences, because acting is not a science. Anybody can act, like singing in the shower. Anybody, you know, like you look at TikTok today, and so many talented people, so many good musicians, but I had to learn the craft inside and out. So I went to New York in '76. I studied. So when it came to audition, I could do all kinds of stuff, you know, and it was through that process. You know, comedy is the hardest because of timing, because of timing and rhythm. And you have to have good rhythm to be a comedic actor. So I did all those. You know, I was going through the Norman Lear years. I did Different Strokes. I did the Jeffersons. I did Webster. I did Caroline in the City. I did all those half-hour sitcoms. Because, why? Because I could say my line with good timing to support the leads and make them sound funny. I was in Cheers. I was in Taxi. You know, so I work with everybody. And I was a great supporting actor because I was able to you know, perpetuate and to keep the scenes moving, even if they were not written well.
Right.
And oftentimes they weren't written well.
And it's funny you say that, because I'm somebody of a theater background. I went to school for theater, and I feel like modern theater education is exactly what you've just described.
Yeah.
And I wonder if it's because of, you know, people seeing that almost like what you said earlier about how no actor wants a small part, right? Like,
yeah.
So by giving them a more diverse body of talents and of skills and things like that, it makes them more valuable, I think, in the theatrical workforce and in the entertainment workforce for sure. So it's interesting to hear your experience with that, and you know, in the '70s, and my experience with it in the, you know, the early 2000s is just crazy. So
getting back to like, I'm sorry, Jamie.
No, you're okay.
But my mind is racing too, because as you're talking, I'm thinking all these things. But in terms of like surviving as an actor, I did everything I could. And that's where dubbing and animation and voice acting came in. Because I started then, I don't know if you remember, in the '70s, there was this kung fu craze with Enter the Dragon, which I did do some dubbing work on. And I started, because I could read music, understood music and timing. I worked in the old days dubbing films. To dub a film, it was analog. It was not digital. So you had to be perfect in terms of matching the mouth flaps. Nowadays, they can move the flaps. They can move the digitally, extend the scene to be like a hair longer in order for your lips to fit, what you're saying. In those days, you had to match it. And you got 3 shots. And if you didn't do it in 3, you'd be let go and said, thank you. And you wouldn't last that long. And I worked with guys like Phil Hartman, Robin
Wow.
Williams in the old
Wow.
days, and Frank Welker, who kind of mentored me too. And it was great because I could dub all the kung fu movies that, all the sounds that Bruce Lee created. Well, we did that as kids. We didn't play, cops and robbers or cowboys and Indians. We played samurai warriors, or we played kung fu masters. And so I started doing them, and it was like, oh, it was like McDonald's. You flip one hamburger and you flip the next one and you just go down the line. And I was doing that with all the kung fu movies, with all these Bruce Lee copiers. I did a Bruce Lee, Bruce Lowe, Bruce Ling, Bruce Lang, ripoffs. And then one day, Mako, again, my mentor, was working with Schwarzenegger on Conan the Barbarian. And John Milius, the director, said to Mako, well, I want my movie to sound like a Kurosawa movie. The battle scenes, I want it to sound like samurai warriors. So Mako called me up and brought me to John Milius, and I met Milius. And unfortunately, all the muscle men that Schwarzenegger had brought on to work with him in Conan the Barbarian had developed every muscle in their body except their voice muscles. And they would speak like, let's go to the castle. So I had to go in and mock, and Milius said, he'd say, watch this movie, this samurai movie. I said, John, I don't have to. I grew up watching it on my grandmother's lap. And so I had to make a man out of all these men.
That's so funny.
So, so like that, and you asked me about like Avatar. So I started working that way. And Andrea Romano, who did direct Avatar, I knew her when she was an assistant. Because of all the work that I did during that period, I had run into her when she was young. And I don't know if you know Andrea. Andrea is one of the greatest voice directors, animation directors there is. She's since retired. But she was doing Avatar at the time, and then she knew me, I knew her, and she brought me in.
Wow.
Yeah.
What a crazy role to be brought into, too, because Avatar has had such enormous grip on pop culture. It's just so popular. So what a great connection that is.
I was shocked by it because, I was doing Jake Long and the American Dragon. I was doing Grandpa on that, and Avatar was just another animated. We never I never thought it would be that big, but who knows? What do you know? I had one of the lead roles in a thing called Hi Puffy Amiyumi.
Okay.
I thought that was going to be big,
So it's so funny you say this. I was literally telling Mark before you joined us this evening, when I was going through your IMDb, because my husband is one of those people who can like pinpoint a voice from a mile away. Yeah. And he's like, yeah, the guy that was Commander Sato. Yeah. He was in Doom in 2004. And I'm like, okay, like, sure, you're the video game guy, so I believe you.
Right.
So I'm scrolling through your IMDb and I was like, he was Kaz in Hi Puffy Amiyumi. That's relevant to me because I was working for the agency that had signed Puffy Amiyumi to come to the United States to do their tour.
Really?
Yeah. So it was when the show went to Cartoon Network, we were all so excited because we were like, we love Puffy Amiyumi. And then I saw your name and I was like, I have come full circle. Truly come full circle.
Yeah.
So I loved it. I'm just saying it was fun.
I loved it. I thought it was great. But I mean, who knows?
So good.
Yeah.
Right.
It's so interesting.
It's so wild.
What's going to take off and become a gigantic hit and what's going to remain a cult classic. Where were you at convention? Avatar is like truly taken on a life of its own. And now there's a live action version coming next year to Netflix. Yeah. That whole is going to keep going, it seems. There's a scale up of like, I guess the older kids in 2025 coming. I'm not sure all the details, but it's so exciting. But back. It feels like the 90s all over again, doesn't it?
Well, I'll tell you, I've always been kind of like a rebel doing these crazy roles like Kaz and Grandpa and American Dragon. And I knew all the really great young voice actors like Grady Lyle was in it, and Yuri Lowenthal, who I've worked a lot with, when he was younger. And so I knew they were using a lot of good talent there. So but I felt, well, me being the rebel performer that I am, I probably would not be part of it. And then Andrea brought me in to play Zhang Zhang. And a lot of people are surprised that I am. But I'm really not hot on them now because they're doing a new avatar, they were doing the game, and they wanted to find the voice of Zhang Zhang, so they sent me a voice match audition. And they wanted me to audition for the role. I said, well, no, I created the role, but they sent me a, what do you call those things, that a sound alike? We want you to sound alike this actor. And they sent me. I said, are you friggin' kidding me? You send me to sound like me? I said, you guys are sick. So I said, nah, you know what? You go do your thing. You know?
Want recruiter reach out to me at a company that I used to work for, asking me if I was interested, and I was like, you can check my employment history. Yeah, that's just that's a lack of attention to detail, right?
Right. Yeah. So I mean, you know, I've worked with some of the toughest, you know. Hey, you know, like I work with guys like about voice. When I said I was working with Phil Hartman, stuff like that, I work with like Billy Wilder, you know, and Francis Ford Coppola and Peter Yates and some pretty big people. So I'm
bonkers.
Like,
so bonkers. Like what a crazy wonderful list of names you're just rattling off like it's nothing. It's so crazy.
I know. You know, like I was you know, I've been working dubbing foreign films now since the pandemic, you know, because there's no work. So I started to do some dubbing of foreign, like the Squid Game. I was in the Squid Game. And, you know, you get these young guys from film school. And one guy said, well, have you done dubbing before? I said, well, yeah. I said, I dubbed Billy Wilder's movie. He went, what, who? I said, you know, Billy Wilder, right? And these film school guys are like, yeah.
Wow.
And so, you know, you always fight for respect in this business. It doesn't matter. So anyway, but let's get back to the modern stuff, because I'm sure your people want to hear about that kind of stuff.
Oh, listen, I'm glad you course corrected that question, because honestly, I was just so excited about some of the roles that I had seen in my IMDb search. And I'm so glad that we went down that path, because what crazy, wonderful stories those are.
Yeah. And not, that's only a partial list, by the way.
I believe that.
Oh yeah. No, look, we had put up your name that you were going to be interviewing you. People sent in questions from sort of all over the place. One of our members, his name is Abraham. He wanted to know what it was like working on Teen Titans, and if he had any specific memories from that show. And he also says he loves you on Samurai Jack. So
yes,
people were, and this is a Rebels group. And let me tell you, and then they're like, oh, also Rebels. And I was like, exactly. This man has done. You said it since 1967. You're celebrating like 50 years in the industry. It's amazing.
Yeah, yeah. Well, Teen Titans was great because I love the crowd, the cast. The cast is some of the finest people that you could work with. Scotty, who does Robin, is such a great gentleman. He's such a great person to work with. And the Beast Boy, I'm sorry, my mind is working at a mile a minute. Greg Sipes, who's just a sweetheart of a guy, and Tara is such an accomplished voice person.
Yes, yeah,
you know,
she's super prolific.
And Hayden and the whole cast was just good to me, and I love working with them. And then Andrea Romano was again the directed that, and as far as Samurai Jack goes, anything that Gendy Tartakov writes and creates, any voice actor should try and work with him, because he has such a far-ranging, abstract thinking mind, you know, in terms of animation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When Samurai Jack came out, I mean, I just remember there was nothing like it. Like it was a really unique show, really unique stories, really unique animation. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Yep.
So we've talked about all of these other incredible roles that you've earned and that, you know, that you've found. How did Rebels come about? How did you find yourself in a galaxy far, far away?
Well, I had not thought of myself as part of the Star Wars uh, franchise. You know, I thought, well, they had a special type of actor, quality of actor uh, that they work with, and that I just probably would not be part of that, you know, group. You know how you are. Like you go to school and you see the really hot guys and girls on one side of the, you know, the canteen, and then you're like with your guys, the nerds, you know, or the idiots, you know. And I thought, well, yeah, okay, you know. And but I got a call from them, and they were, I think Commander Sato was one of the first characters of Asian descent that was part of the diaspora, you know, the Star Wars franchise. And they thought of me because that's what I have been doing all my life. You know, I worked in Asian American theater, worked with Asian American writers, helped develop writers and actors and scene designers. I was an Asian American, you know, that was my thing. So I think maybe, well, they said maybe, you know, Keone would be right for this. And well, I couldn't agree more.
And there you are.
But unfortunately, they killed me. So,
you're not alone in that.
No.
Really, it's Star Wars, though, dude. Yeah. Nobody makes it out alive.
I know, but you know, it was funny because I didn't. For me, it was not the end all. You know, I had been working in many different shows, and so I mean, and I was used to when you work in the business, you get used to rejection. You get used to, you know, being turned away. So it's like it's no big thing. Next is the optimal word, you know. So like, besides, I was doing Deadwood, you know, which was on HBO. So when they took, you know, they said, well, we're going to kill you. But the way they did it, I thought was really fantastic. Because they brought me up north. They took me to their offices. They took me to their museum, showed me around, took my family out. They were wonderful to my family, gave my son gifts. And the artist would draw him pictures and, you know, to have. And they took me out to lunch. And over lunch, Dave Filoni took me out to lunch. And over lunch, he said, Keone, one thing, we're going to kill you this year. I said, Dave. I said, okay. And so Dave, they said, nothing personal, but, you know, I think it's going to be a great scene. And it was, you know, I really was. I really enjoyed it. But just to be there and just to give my people, because, you know, I watched Star Trek when in the original, in the black and white. And if you remember, there was one giant Mongolian that came on in one episode. I don't know if you've ever seen the old Star Trek.
It's been a while.
My husband is probably downstairs screaming about it because my Star Trek guy.
Okay.
We're house divided.
In the old black and whites, you know, there was one guy who came on and everybody stopped and watched. Everybody in my house just stopped and watched him. And consequently, I knew his name was Nathan Jung, who we call Big Boy. And he was a real, like 6'8", tall Asian guy. And consequently, I worked with him. I went to Thailand and did a movie with him and Leslie Nielsen. It was called Surf Ninjas of the South China Seas, which was a cult classic. But anyway, so what was I saying? Yeah, so you know, just to think, okay, here I am in Star Wars. Here's where my people can watch Star Wars and identify. So I was very happy and very thankful to Filoni because of it. You know?
Rebels was really special with that, I think, because Pablo Hidalgo has talked about how nobody on the Ghost crew or everybody on the Ghost crew was sort of coded to a different ethnicity. We had Ezra, who was meant to sort of represent the Middle East, and Sabine, who was supposed to be an Asian American, or not Asian American, but a Pacific Islander. So there was a lot of that, I think, in Rebels, and it's so wonderful to hear that representation.
Yeah.
resonates, you know, and it sticks, and it's so important. And we saw it even more with, you know, with Resistance. When Resistance came out afterwards, of course, we saw that with the Doza family and some of the other characters, and Kaz, of course. So that's wonderful. I'm so thankful that you had the opportunity to have that representation and to do that for Star Wars.
Yeah.
So hopefully
and
there's lots more of that.
You can also see from the comments, Dave, who's our producer tonight, is a Star Trek fan.
Yeah.
Popping in with all the Trek knowledge. I know a little bit surface level, like I like Star Trek, but there are people in the group who are hardcore and will ask me questions. I was like, I don't know what the answer is. I just like it. On the, you know, people ask me crazy, weird, deep cut Star Wars stuff, and I'm like, yeah, over there.
That's
so
right.
everything, but it's amazing because you've been in Star Trek and Star Wars. You've done Indiana Jones, the video game. All these crazy franchises. It's wild.
Well, I got a couple stories behind that. First, let me start with Star Wars. Dave Filoni is a great. He's kind of like an Asianophile, starting with Godzilla. He's got a great Godzilla collection, and he goes to Japan often to go and, you know, collect. And since he's became who he is, has been able to meet a lot of the Japanese artists and performers. With Star Trek, and consequently, because of Star Wars Rebels, I was able to work on Visions, you know, the animation. So I did work on,
I just pulled it up because I was like, I think he was in Visions too, wasn't he?
I did. So they called me up, and so, you know, I have a good relationship with them. Except I got to ask Dave, in The Mandalorian, you hired a guy, looks like me, walks like me, talks like me, but is somebody else. Why? I don't know who you know who I'm talking about.
I have an idea.
Mandalorian? Huh?
I have an idea.
Okay. So anyway, in Star Trek, I was, you know, people always ask me, what was your best roles? And my roles are like children. You know, how can you say which child you love the best? They come from me. But one of my favorites is Buck Bokai from Deep Space Nine. I thought that
We're rooting for you.
I thought that role had a lot of depth to it and brought Deep Space Nine to a different territory with Cisco, the character of Cisco. Mark doesn't know what we're talking about, Jamie. So.
I mean, I'm more of a modern Star Trek person because my husband, like, before we got married, my husband was like, but this is a non-negotiable for us to get married. We need to watch Star Trek. And I said, all right. So
okay.
I wouldn't call myself an expert, but I certainly know who you're talking about.
Okay.
I was in middle school, I think, when Deep Space Nine originally came out. I remember liking it because it was really dark and interesting. And I guess I was going through that phase. Because like Cisco is such a different type of captain, and that isolation of being, what is it, the Delta Quadrant or the Gamma Quadrant, wherever they are, it's the Alpha Quadrant, right? And they're dealing what I joke now, the Cardassians, it felt really bleak, that show, in a way that like was really interesting, but I don't remember much of it because now it's like almost 30 years ago. So I need to go back.
Star Trek.
Yeah, everyone says DS9 is like the overlooked, like possibly the best singular series.
Yeah.
So I don't know. All right. It looks like you popped up a lot though. Okay, why are you in the baseball jersey? I got to ask you because you look amazing, by the way.
I play the baseball legend from the 25th century or something like that. You know, who broke Babe Ruth's record. It was from Cisco's imagination, actually. You know, so he brought all these characters in. Right.
I knew he was obsessed with baseball. He had the baseball on his desk. I remember that.
Right. Yeah. And that was a wonderful episode. And then, of course, there you had some great actors there too, like Renee Auberjonois, who I had known previously from the stage, and also Armin Shimmerman, and
a legend,
right, quite a bunch of great actors. So I was very happy.
Yeah, they're all terrific.
So, with the diversity of roles that you've had, Is there anything you haven't done that you're just itching to do, or something that's really on your radar that's like a pipe dream or a goal or something to work towards for you?
Well, I had a bucket list, like I wanted to work with Francis Ford Coppola after I saw The Godfather and the Vietnam one, Apocalypse Now. And I did. I got to work with Francis. And then I wanted to work with Pacino, I got to work with him. But there's only one thing I would ever want to do as an actor, and that was to have worked with Brando, but he died. So, so what I'm really saying is, no, there ain't nothing that I'm doing what I want to do.
That's so awesome.
I'm an actor. I'm a working actor in
Yeah.
LA. And if I'm not in LA working, I'm somewhere else on the road working. Nobody is ever going to keep me down as an actor. I work all the time, and I work hard at working hard. And the thing that only makes me happy is to make my family, be able to live a good life. And
that's so awesome.
So I don't care, I don't care if it's Star Trek, Star Wars, Avatar. I don't care. If you don't want me, somebody else is going to want me. So that's the type of actor I am. And I want voice actors to know, don't make something an ultimate. Make yourself, your life, the ultimate dream to improve your life, and they will want you eventually.
I think
I don't know if that makes sense.
No, it does. So, I mentioned earlier, I came from an entertainment background myself, and it's the entertainment industry is one where I feel like you have to go in with that level of resiliency, and you have to go in with that level of knowing your value and knowing what you bring to the table. So I think, hearing somebody with such an incredible career as you sort of reiterate that and be living proof that that's really the case it's important, I think, for people to hear. I'm clear out of the entertainment industry these days, but I think if I had heard more of that when I was younger, I think it would be really helpful. So for everybody listening out there in the entertainment industry, that's some great advice.
Yeah. Rejection is, you have to learn. I was taught you have to learn to love rejection. That is just part of the game. A professional poker player, let's say a boxer. A boxer does not go into the ring thinking he's not going to ever be punched. He's going to think, he's going to know, he's going to train how to take a punch, how to take being hurt, but yet keep going on. An actor has to do the same thing, because rejection is part of the game. And you have to love being punched. You have to enjoy being punched, because a lesson is learned from that, And so actors have to learn that. I know so many actors who came up with me, and young actors today, they get rejected and they get hurt and they give up. Not me. I love being rejected.
It's like some Commander Sato level of life advice right now. You could film a whole podcast of Commander Sato just giving you like daily motivational
right. So I mean, like, if you don't want me for Sato, I'll be Storm Shadow. If you don't want me for Storm Shadow, I'll be John. I'll be Kaz. I'll be Grandpa. I'll be something,
And it sounds like the work is coming through. Like, people know how good you are. You're booked and blessed, as they would say. A lot going on. And then you also got the convention circuit running. So I love that. Deep Thoughts with Commander Sato. We're gonna mock up some inspirational posters for you in our frame.
No, you know why, Mark? Because I have a past too, and my past was fraught with fear of being rejected, and fraught with fear of having to go back home and say, you guys were right. I should have never left. Where's that truck that you wanted me to drive? Where's that hand truck? And so and because of that, there was a lot of negative feelings, and I realized that negative feelings does not help me, does not benefit me, that I have to just keep, and what many professionals do is keep grinding, which I do. So
Yeah, and I think, you know, having, it sounds like anyway, having the mental mindset that you have kind of keeps away a lot of the negativity. You know, I think it's really easy, especially in this timeline that we live in, to really harp on that negativity and to give into that negativity and to let it kind of fester. But, you know, I like the mindset of the advice. It's like, all right, if this isn't it, let's move on to the next thing, and I'll be the best next thing I can be, and so on and so forth. So,
well, like with Commander Sato, you know, I tried to give him some kind of dignity and parity with my other actors, you know. And you know, when you're working with Freddie Prinze and Vanessa you know, Vanessa's a great actress, voice
she is.
actress. You know, so you have to come from a place where you're on the same plane as them. So you have to come with it. So you have to be prepared. And all that training did prepare me. By the way, speaking of Freddie Prinze, I knew his dad, you know.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I knew his dad when his dad first came to town and was doing, what was that show he was doing? Chico and the Man. So I had met I had met the first Freddie Prinze in a coffee shop on Santa Monica Boulevard in Crescent Heights. And it was next to a club called Starwoods. It was a big club in Hollywood where all the people used to hang out. And I met Freddie Prinze there, and I had talked to him and met him a couple of times. Yeah, he was a sweet man, sweet man.
What a small world, right?
It really is.
And then I'm working with his son, Freddie Prinze Jr. You know?
So how much recording did you guys do together? Because I know when we talked to Vanessa and we talked to Taylor, oftentimes it was, you know, some things were filmed together and some things, or not filmed, but recorded together, and some things weren't. So how much interaction did you have with the rest of the crew?
More than you usually do. More than you usually do, because Filoni would come in from up north. He would fly down to LA, and it'd be one day of sessions. And so, many times we'd come in and do the scenes together. Yeah, so. Nice. I was very fortunate to work with all of them. And, you know, Steve Bloom, I think he's just one of the greatest voice actors in the world today.
I agree.
He is, I love him. You know, Steve Bloom is just inspirational, working in the same room with him. You know, he's just wonderful.
That's awesome.
He was
I
one
aspire
of
to be in the room with them.
Yeah, he's such good people. Just getting to meet him at a show is terrific.
Stevie Bloom is a great man. And if he called me up today and say, "Come over, I need you for something," I'd drop everything and go for it. There's only a couple guys like that: Fred Tatasciore, Frank Welker.
Oh, another favorite. Oh,
yeah, Frank Welker and Kevin Michael. You know, those. There's a few of them that I bow down to. You know, and Stevie is one of them.
We were at San Diego Comic-Con 2015. This was our first when I joined Topps, which is how we originally met. Keone signed autographs for Topps trading cards. You can find his autograph but signed as Commander Sato several times. We had Steve Bloom come to our booth at San Diego Comic-Con to do an exclusive signing to fans and everything. He was so nice, and little kids were coming up to the booth, and he did the Zeb voice for them. And I was
incredible,
grown ass man being like, "Oh yeah," like that.
That's me. I mean, that's me. I just think, you know, when you have such an opportunity to bring life to these incredibly iconic characters, and you know, Commander Sato, of course, is part of that, right? You know, he talked about his very noble and his very dramatic death, but you're part of the Star Wars canon forever, and Star Wars has been around for generations now, and it's left lasting marks on people's lives. I mean, I joke about this all the time, and I bring it up all the time, not as like a weird like talk about me moment, but like I named my child after a Star Wars character. So you're leaving these. Yeah, her name is Sabine.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
So, but you know, you leave these lasting marks. And I know sometimes, you know, when I was still performing, it's easy to say like, oh, I got to do this one more show. I got to do this one more show. And it starts to feel sort of tired. But when you realize what a mark you're leaving on your audience and your fans, I just think it's so special. So, I mean, it's just so wonderful to hear your experiences with Sato and with, you know, all these other roles you've brought to life, because you have absolutely left an impact on people all over the world.
Good.
So that's so special. I would probably cry if Steve Bloom said Carabas in front of me. I mean, I cried talking to Vanessa Marshall, so like, why not, right?
Yeah,
Right.
so was
Fine.
I know a lot of scenes with her. Was it fun playing off of that dynamic with Vanessa? Because I know she is a pro.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was a lot. I have a lot of good memories of working with her. Yeah, she is a pro, but she's a great human being too, which is why she's a good pro. You know, she's very caring, very kind, very giving, and she was that way with me.
Oh, that's terrific to hear. You know, when we had
Yeah.
her on the show, she was getting ready to do a Metal Gear Solid charity event of some type. It's happening, I think, next month.
Soon,
Right.
yeah, came up on my feed.
She is constantly gigging, and I know she does a lot for the community. And she's back out there, like I think a lot of people are post-COVID, hitting the convention circuit,
Right.
Which is great because now we have a chance to meet everyone again,
Right.
which I'm more of. That's one of my goals for 2024. I'm going to be at San Diego Comic-Con, so I'm hoping to like run into some people there. But outside of the big shows, which are always so busy, like I think just I want to spend weekends going to the smaller scale shows. Like a bunch of us are going to Terrificon in Connecticut next month, so that'll be really fun. Do you have any other shows coming up later this year? I know you mentioned a couple that are on the agenda very recently or coming up soon.
No, I don't know. There's a lot of things happening, but I got to go back and I have a couple of things I must do for some studios. I'm working on some projects that I can't talk about right now.
I know. We had Taylor Gray on, I think 2 weeks before the press release came out about the new movie he was filming. And he's like, I'm working on something. And then we saw a photo of him the following week and his hair was blonde. And I was like, what's going on? What's happening? Is he going through a crisis? And then it's for a role. So yes, secret projects. Once you're able to announce, you let us know. We'll put it up on the Facebook group over here and let all of our fans know. Like
we will hear about it. There's a big project that I'm working with. It's a co-production with Asia and America, and it's going to be very. It's an iconic characters, and it's going to be big. So
excellent.
That's great.
Oh my God, my knee-jerk reaction was One Piece. Are you in One Piece? No,
you can't.
I'm sorry, that's inappropriate. no, but that's.
I had the same thought earlier because, like, I just saw an article today about One Piece
Same.
Live. Yeah.
Same. Yeah. Literally crossed my radar. I didn't even know it was happening, and I was like, "Oh, all right, there it is."
Yeah, I was across from their booth at New York Comic Con last year. The actual, I guess, the cartoon or whatever, and they had a giant pirate ship. The thing was like as tall as the whole Javits Convention Center, and I was like, "This all over crush my booth." It was very that building it. You know how it's like during build at these conventions. It's insanity. But they had the entire time.
You've done Celebration once, a number of times, right?
Twice. Yeah, twice. But I'm not. For me as an actor, to tell you the truth, I'm not in your big popular events. Although I've done many of them. Like Terrificon is great, and it's run by a great guy named Mitch Halleck, who is a very good friend of mine, and he's a wonderful promoter and a producer. Works really hard. I've done many major cons, but I don't seem to. I seem to function better with those serious fans, those people who really know shows and know not about what's hot and what's trending, but what who really follows shows and actors seriously.
Yeah.
So I go to these retro toy and specialty kind of cons, where I meet fans who are collectors or who are really serious about their viewing.
Yeah, that was us. You saw the pack of us come through with me and Ashley and Spencer. I had my husband in. He acted as my personal assistant for the weekend. Stuff. He was great. I was like, I'll pay for dinner. So, but it was a lot of fun. But we had numerous members from the virtual Cantina there, and now it's the point where it's like, hey guys, if we want someone at the show, all of us can collectively message like the convention and say we're interested in so and so.
Yeah, I don't want to compete with William Shatner or George Takei. I mean, they have their crowd. I want the people who really want to see Commander Sato or Storm Shadow. Yeah. Or Mr. Wu from Deadwood.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, come down to Florida. Well, Florida's a little touch and go right now with conventions, but come down to Florida, because honestly, I would love to see more Rebels representation at like a MegaCon, or
Yeah, if I come down,
got...
if I'm gonna do a con in Florida, I'm gonna come in drag.
Listen, I will do your makeup, my friend. Let's party, you and me.
Because I mean, you know, that rule, those laws are stupid. So I mean, if I go do a, I said if I'm doing a con in Florida, I'm going to be there in drag. What are you going to do about it?
Yeah. Now
my
we're
friend.
What?
Yeah.
I will lace you into the corset. Let's go. Let's party. No, it's, you know, listen, it's definitely, it's its own thing down here. But, you know, the Star Wars fans down here in Florida, especially because of our proximity to Galaxy's Edge and to that too, it's been really great to like actually have Galaxy's Edge nearby, because oftentimes the Star Wars families will go to these conventions and they'll do their signings or their panels or whatever. And then you'll be walking through, you know, Hollywood studios and you'll be like, oh, hey, that's so-and-so from that Star Wars project. And that's so-and-so from that Star Wars project. So, but yeah, just saying, come on down.
You brought up games. Did you want to mention something about games?
Oh, absolutely.
Because Diablo just came out, Diablo 4, and I'm in that. I worked on that, and I'm also a part of World of Warcraft. It was called Mists of Pandaria, where I had the lead in that as Chen Stormstout, the panda. So your fans might be interested in that as well, because there's a big World of Warcraft crowd.
Yes.
We have a
there's
gaming community within the Star Wars group here. Like everything. I that I'm like a 2D side scroller. So if we're past Super Mario World, I am lost. But the rest of our group are playing like Fallen Order right now, and I know the game is out that everyone's obsessed with. But yeah, what tell us about some of the roles that you've done across video games, because I know you've done quite a few, and I know Diablo's the latest. Can you give us like a little bit into that character and what he's like?
No, you know, Diablo is, of course, has an evil side to it. So I've developed these evil characters that I perpetuate throughout the game. But mostly in my career, I've had to do games because they eventually started doing the samurai things like Ninja Gaiden, and which I was the lead character in that, and also all the way up to Ghost of Tsushima. So I've been participating in those games in one way or another when it comes to like Asian background and Asian stories. And Indiana Jones was one of them, where I had to speak Mandarin. And my background is not, you know, it's funny these days as the world gets smaller, you know, people become smarter and produce. In the old days, you just had to speak one Asian language and you could pass for any Asian character. Nowadays, do you know the, you know, they'll say, do you know the Hunan dialect? And I'll go, what?
Yeah.
No, you know, so I had to learn Mandarin for that. And I had to hire a coach. And
it's not an easy language to learn.
It's not an easy language, because my background is in Cantonese, and that they wanted a Mandarin speaking character. So I had to hire a coach myself and study for a week on the dialogue and that. And then, but that has been my career always, you know, like I did 21 Jump Street, and I played a Vietnamese father to the I forget his name, Dustin Nguyen. I don't know if you know Dustin. He was the star in 21 Jump Street on TV. And I played his father, who spoke Vietnamese, and I had to take a course in Vietnamese and study.
Wow.
So I even went to Berlitz and have trained in different Asian languages. I also went to school to learn and read and write the language.
Wow.
So I learned classical Japanese and Okinawan music, so I can read the music, which is much different than Western. Western is left to right. Theirs is north to south. North to south, and they turn the pages the opposite the way we do. So all of that develops your brain and makes you, you know, facile in terms of like characters and thinking and thought process and dialogue. And so I was brought in to do a lot of these. If you know Miss of Pandaria, it's kind of like based on this Chinese epic. So, so how many languages do I speak? I speak, you know, I didn't even speak English when I first came out. I spoke in a native patois, which we call Pidgin English. And I was made fun of a lot when I came out here to study acting because I could not speak English properly. So I had to retrain myself. So
that's incredible. I mean, they're all so challenging.
My native language is Pidgin English. And if you ever go to Hawaii, you will hear people speak it. The local people speak it. But I had to learn how to speak in this language that I'm talking to you in right now. So it's not really my voice already.
Well, yeah, because I can imagine, especially if you're doing, you know, because you talked about doing a lot of dub work for, especially for Asian films. So yeah, so you probably have like your native tongue as one voice, and then I'm sure you have another voice for English, like you said, another voice for Japanese, another voice for Cantonese, for Mandarin, for Vietnamese. That your brain must be so full of voices, and in the best way possible.
Well, it's training, you know, it's training. Yeah. It's like I said, go back to the boxer thing. You not only have to learn to punch, you have to learn to defend, you know, and the different types, you know, of speed, rhythm, you know, depends on your opponent. And that's how I always saw like acting. You know, you're in a scene and you're with another fighter and you have to, you know, it's a choreographed dance almost. Yeah.
That's amazing.
It's such a it's such a different way of thinking about it, like the boxing with the back and forth. I never thought of acting in that way. But it makes perfect sense because there are so many things you have to do, and you've been across so many different types of media, you know, with live action television, live action films, voiceover work for animation, all of the dubbing you were saying you were doing in the multiple languages, the video games. I was just pulling up the list over here of video games. I didn't realize there are this many properties, including Doom, which Jamie was saying, and Gaiden and SWAT and I don't know, Tenchu. There's Indiana Jones back in 2003. There's a lot of great stuff in here. How do you go about choosing projects? Because I'm sure these items are all flying at you. Do you get into sort of rhythms of like, hey, we're doing a lot of voiceover work right now, or we're going out for live action roles during this season? Is there sort of a process to that?
I don't know if you know that in Screen Actors Guild, we have to make a certain amount of money in order to qualify for medical insurance. So that's all I'm looking at. I'm looking at who's going to bring me closer to my medical insurance so I can take care of my family. You know what I mean?
I love how practical you are, because I have a lot of friends who talk about, you know, being like working actors, and it's very passion driven. And I'm thinking ultimately, like, you need to clear minimums, health insurance, all those things, you know, first before you can get to, I want this really heavy meditation kind of role. And I was like, the paycheck to clear, sir.
They ask me every time I'm on the set, what is your motivation? It says to finish my job and to go home and wait for the check to come to the correct place.
Oh my God. I think if my manager asked me that, we'd have a very long conversation that followed. I get what you're saying. Totally get it. I will say it probably makes you very open to trying lots of things too, you know, because you're, as Jamie mentioned earlier, your resume is so like diverse, broad, like it's across everything. It feels fearless, right? Like, have you ever been confronted with a role where you're like, I don't really know if that's something I'm going to go after because I don't know if it's a fit for me, or you know, it's something that's just kind of too far out there? Because I feel like you're just someone who just would just do it and give it a shot.
You know, I'm a pro, so nothing phases me. I'll do it. Whatever automobile you have me to drive, I'll drive it. You know, I don't care if it's a stick shift on the column. I don't care if it's, you know, I'll do it. I can find a way. I find a way. And going back to the boxing reference, if you think working on Golden Girls is not a boxing match.
Can I tell you, I literally have pulled up, I was like, hey, I've seen every episode of Golden Girls way too many times. So I was like, who was he in Golden Girls? I was like, was he Mr. Tanaka?
Yeah. And of course,
Found ya.
if you're working with Maud, what's her name?
The Arthur.
Yeah.
B. Arthur, you know you're in the ring with a toughie. And happy to say she, you know, like I was warned about her before the show. Like, don't mess with them. Don't screw up with Maud.
Wow. Like you have, I am talking to somebody 1 degree away from B. Arthur right now. Like, my mother is going to be beside herself.
Yeah, same.
That's incredible. Yeah. Golden Girls. We came to talk about Commander Sato, but we had to talk about the Golden Girls. Oh my goodness.
And I know we're also just about an hour, so I don't know if there's a closing story you want to tell or anything you want to land or any call to action you would like us to throw out there for everyone.
Well, let me just, before I make my final point or thought, I am having things come up. Somebody mentioned the Tales of the Mogwai.
Yes.
I am also in the 2nd season, and you should watch for that because it's a little 3-parter that I think was well written and well done, and I think it's going to be very interesting. So the 1st season I did various voices, but the 2nd season is going to be I think a lot better. It's going to, for me it was anyway. And then I also have a couple projects coming up. One with Netflix that's going to be huge, and I would like to talk about that with you sometime because it's very big. It's going to be very big. I will just say now it's a co-production with Asia and America.
That's amazing.
And it's going to be big. So, and you know, I'm be 76 this year, so I'm still hustling and grinding and working.
That's amazing. Well,
yeah.
Congrats on not only just being 76 and being a working actor,
yes,
being in the industry for over 50 years, for being sprinkled throughout the franchises that all of us on this channel love and adore, from G.I. Joe to Indiana Jones to Star Trek to Star Wars, everything that's scrolling across the bottom of your screen. By the way, I had to look you up on DuckTales because there was a moment where I thought, was he in the new one or the old one? I love both. So, you know, Teen Titans, all the live action stuff like Deadwood, amazing stuff. I also just want to say, jumping on Secrets of the Mogwai, we have the license for Gremlins over at my company. I work with Ruby's, the costume company. I will definitely send you a Gizmo or a striped costume for the kids or for you. We've got adult costumes, we've got kids costumes. That show is super cute. And I think everyone should watch Secrets of the Mogwai, and we'll be on the lookout for season 2 when our episode.
Yeah. Let me just because we mostly talk about animation, but we didn't talk about on camera, and I want to talk a little bit just as a parting with HBO's Deadwood, which to me and to many others was one of the finest dramas on TV, episodic dramas on TV. And I give credit to one of my other mentors, is David Milch, who wrote and created it. He also created NYPD Blue. And to meet such a genius of a man, you asked me about roles and acting, and he gave me confidence in myself to be able to have certain standards to what I would like to do and what I would agree to do. David, if you ever have a chance, you should read his memoir. The name of it escapes me now, but it's by David Milch, and you should try and see Deadwood to see some of the finest acting that you'll ever see on dramatic TV. Not mine, but I mean many of the cast. I mean, you know, it's one of the shows where, you know, most TV shows, you do your part and you go, okay, I'm done. But we would walk down. I would love to see Kim Dickens act, Anna Gunn, W. Earl Brown, and some of the finest actors, Ian McShane, that you would ever see. So that was it.
No, I've been told to watch Deadwood by numerous people, and now I'm being told by someone in the show to watch Deadwood.
Deadwood.
Yeah, but not for me, but because of the boundaries that we pushed in the show.
Yeah.
You know.
I know for sure it was, I mean, it was absolutely a critically acclaimed show. I only recently have access to HBO, so now I can watch Deadwood.
Yeah.
But I do remember when it came out, there was a lot of acclaim around Deadwood. So
yes,
it's amazing.
It's on my list.
The number of projects that you've been a part of, and beloved projects and critically acclaimed projects, and then just weird, interesting stuff. Like I know you're not credited in a lot of the stuff. It's not easily accessible on IMDb, but the work you did on like the old samurai movies is fascinating. I would love to hear and watch some of that. So we'll have to connect after the fact, figure out where we can get our hands on such media, because that's a blast.
Get a penultimate watch list.
We got to talk about some of the dramas, you know, like I've done Sons of Anarchy. I did recurring on Sons of Anarchy, and I did True Blood, and some of the interesting things that happened to me on that set.
I got to tell you, we could spend.
That sounds ominous. That sounds really ominous.
Yeah. Look, True Blood was wild. I remember when that show first premiered, I was like, what is going on this show? It's so nuts. And I loved it. I watched, by the way, I watched all the way through. I know that the ratings dropped over time, but they had their whole campaign, the final season, called True to the End. And I was one of those. I was like, every week, let's go. What's going to happen? This show doesn't make a lick of sense anymore. I'm still in. It was so fun and so campy and so wild. So anyone out there, I can't vouch for Deadwood, but I can vouch for True Blood. It's a blast.
Well, True Blood, the first day I went to the set, I walked onto the set and everybody was nude. And I said, guys, you do not want to see me naked.
Surprise! It's going to be one of those shows.
I gotta ask you, I don't remember. Like, you don't have a naked scene in the show, do you?
No.
Okay.
No. Okay. But I do have
here on the VCN.
But I did do this. I did do this show called All Rise. I don't know if you remember it. It was a court drama, and then it ended up on Oprah's network, OWN. And I did do a nude scene there.
Oh, so Commander Sato After Dark.
We'll put the description.
We'll drop the link in the. Oh my gosh.
I got to check out these True Blood episodes again, because that was my jam when it was on. We have so much that we could talk about still. And by the way, I know right about time. I didn't want to keep you too far over, or believe me, we could always have you back as for another episode where we just do everything in your live action. You know, when you're ready to announce your new Netflix secret project, we can back on.
Okay.
Yeah. Party round 2.
Okay. Exactly.
And we'll get to the after dark. Well, I think thank you, Keone, so much. We did, by the way, this was thrilling, and your advice was incredible. We're truly going to mock up some inspirational posters based on very sound advice. Someone who's this long, I mean that like sincerely. I think the grinding and the work hard, the attitude, the understanding that like this industry is a tough one to be in, and to just keep going, I think is terrific advice. And I think that all of us could they would benefit all of us, regardless of what career path we're in. But it's been fascinating chatting with you. Thank you so much for joining us on Rebels Revisited.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's been a blast.
Well, thank you so much.
We're thrilled to have you, and come back whenever. You are invited at any time, secret project or not. So
okay.
And thank you to everyone who joined us tonight. We are deep in our summer of snips, so be sure to keep up with all of the activities that are happening on the virtual Cantina. We've got Monday Night Rebels Revisited. We've got the Daughters of the Galaxy on the first and third Wednesday of every month. We've got the Unifying Force, we got the Jedi Archives, and of course every Thursday is the official watch along with all sorts of Clone Wars and Mandalorian goodness down the way, getting ready for the premiere of Ahsoka. So it's going to be a great summer. Thank you, Keone, for joining us. Thank you, Jamie, for hosting for tonight. And from all of us over here at the channel, may the Force be with you.
Night.
Aloha no. Bye-bye.